I don't know if I'm gonna film this whole entire wrap up today. Clearly, I feel great. No, what's happened is I've been sick for like over a week and a half, and today I have a fever and a migraine. We're doing great. We're doing great, but thankfully the congestion is not a problem, so I can breathe and talk. So wrap up. Wrap up. I will tell you. I mean, I'm gonna have stats up on screen. I'm gonna do that. Editing's gonna do that. But I do know I read 28 books in the month of March, and 14 of them were for videos, which means we get to talk about 14 books today. Yes, for my wrap-ups, monthly wrap-ups, I only talk about books that weren't in videos or arcs. Generally arcs I type up reviews, except for very rare occasions. Sometimes I feel like I have more to say after the fact, so then I do them here. It depends. But essentially it's that, so that I can try not to sniffle on camera and have an excuse to talk about books. Normally, maybe like 5 or 6 books. It's not that much, right? This month is a perfect example of why last year I did wrap-ups by doing weekly ones as shorts, because the ones earlier on the list, I had strong thoughts and opinions in the beginning of the month. Since then, it's been 3 weeks, and also I've had a cold for a week and a half. So my thoughts and opinions. Anyways, I do know I read 28 books. Half of them were for videos, so we got a lot to talk about, and I don't need to yap for that much, but I will. It's my being sick, and I'm standing, so this is uncomfortable for me. I will do it. Ignore the mess that is behind me. I will do it. I will yap. And then, what's the other thing? I don't know the exact number of pages. I do know my average pages a day was like something like 280, 290, right? I think I read something over 100 audiobook hours, which makes sense. I know this about myself. And I think my average rating for the month was 3.86. I remember this. Big brain. We have a lot to talk about. Oh, another thing is my most read genre was nonfiction. A lot of those were first in the month, like very early in the month. Some of them were for videos, so you don't get to hear about them. But there's a lot of nonfiction. Also, I read so much, I had to get another piece of paper. Whoops. Also, I'm gonna say this now. I gotta grab a physical book. Shit. I will say this now. In the first 3, right? A lot of books I read this month, but 3 in the very first 4, to be honest, is black nonfiction, and that is because I understand. Listen, library hold / borrowing me is a different me. It's a different version of me. And for Black History Month in February, I borrowed or put on hold a lot of black books, especially black nonfiction. And then I was in a reading slump for the whole month of February for very valid reasons. Okay, understandable. And I did not pick them up until beginning of this month when they were due to the library. Yes. Anyways, we'll do the first ones up until we need to grab the physical book from the other room. I just kept it in there next to my desk. Is the way I was gonna film at my desk and not putting it on my bookshelf over there. God damn it. Anyways, the first one, Original Sins, is a black nonfiction about, okay, I think this is the one that is about racism and also how stereotypes are used in the classroom. I think it's primarily in the classroom for specifically Black and Native American children, right? I think that's what that one's about. 4 stars. I'm gonna say now, the only nonfiction that got higher than 4 stars, there's only one in this whole entire thing. Generally, nonfiction gets 4 stars unless I'm like sobbing. It gets 4 stars. If I'm sobbing, it's 5 stars. Minus 1 that I read last year that I despised. Don't need to talk about that. That gets a different thing. Anyways, it was good. I recommend. I do think the order I did it was proper, especially for the first 2, because this was more of a general touching in school settings in particular, I believe, if I'm correct. And then I read Biased, which is one that's been out for much longer, also rated 4 stars, which is similar, but in society, in the world, especially in America, in general. Can you tell I'm not doing a good job describing these? So like, it was interesting. So like, Biased is more broad in topics in general, right? If I'm right. I really hope I'm right on which one's which in this, but it goes more in depth about those specific things in their specific sections, right? Like I remember there was a section about schools in it, and I was able to connect the dots and do big brain thoughts because of reading Original Sins first, and so that was fun. Good times. Also 4 stars. Okay. Then we get the first section, which is Lover Unleashed. Ignore the sounds of my hip popping. That is book 9, and then Black Tiger Brotherhood. I think it's book 11 is where I plan to end. Listen, okay, I kind of hate this series. And I don't know how to, like, I hate it except for 2 books. 2 books in the series I have really enjoyed, which is book 2 and I think 7, or was that 8? I can't remember which one it was. Anyways, this is the male main character in the 3rd? No. 4th? I think the 4th one, the bisexual one. I have a lot of issues with that one, for so many reasons. Listen. I remember why this book made my brain go big thoughts brains. I have so many thoughts opinions. This one is about his half-sister, or no, his twin sister that he didn't know existed and was held in captivity by his mother, who is essentially, I don't know how to describe her. She's like, Mother Mary? I don't know. She's some weird religious figure for the vampires. This is a vampire, urban fantasy smut. I don't, they're all very long for no fucking reason. Anyways, I've only liked two. The one I thought I would dislike the most, I actually really enjoyed. So that was fun. That's why I planned to stop. And I will explain why I'm stopping at that one in a hot minute, because there's a connection. Anyways, it's her relationship, with a, doctor who is her brother's, mates, who is a ghost now. We don't need to talk about she died. She was human, she died. Her close friend slash coworker slash boss slash they almost dated once, who has been mourning her for the past year. He becomes her surgeon because at the end of the previous book, she was fighting with the king of the vampires. They were like play fighting, right? They were training together. Her spine gets damaged somehow, and he has to come and fix it because that's like his thing. That's his specialty, right? Except because of vampire healing and also science and also other reasons, she's paralyzed. Except then suddenly, actually no, she's not, because with the power of sex, she doesn't. She starts glowing whenever they, and she can walk during it, which is great, love that. Anyways, the big brain thoughts processing, her brother, I feel like her name's Pain, and I just really remembered this. God, their names are so funny. Anyways, her brother, whose name I can't remember, he had this whole very close relationship with his best friend Butch, and him and Butch had this whole thing where he's bisexual and Butch is straight but totally be down. There's this whole aspect where him and his wife, essentially, who's a ghost, are fighting, right? Because Pain wants to herself, and try to make her brother do it, in case she is paralyzed. And then Jane, who is his wife, the ghost. I have to remind you that she's a ghost. She, right? Sorry, I just remember the fact that his hand glows, and then that's why he can physically touch her, and that's why they can have sex. Anyways, she is like, I can't let the man I love kill his own twin sister, right? So she sets it up so that Pain can kill herself properly, right? Because she's paralyzed and she doesn't want to be a disabled woman. I can't even touch out with a 10-foot pole. Okay, listen. Anyways, so because of that, he catches her doing that and he stops it. And because of that, they have relationship issues. Especially since before the relationship, he like darker, kinkier sex. And he's all like, that's not for my woman. My woman needs missionary only. Reminder, she's a ghost. Right? And Butch knows this about him. And so there's a part where they're fighting, and he goes back to his penthouse, his BDSM penthouse, on his own, and Butch finds him there, and it's this whole thing where his wife essentially asks his male best friend, who is married to another woman, right, to do whatever he has to, including doing it with him, to make it so that those urges are handled if he doesn't trust Jane to do it. Yes, she just gave them the pass to have sex. I can't believe I'm saying this. That is all to say, the one I'm planning to stop on, which I think is number 11, is the one where it has been a background thing set up for like 5 books now of the next generation of vampires, who are like in their mid-20s, because that's when vampire puberty is, right? There is one that is gay, and there's one, and he's in love with his best friend, who has a relationship with a woman, and so it's a lot of them figuring out their own dynamic, and the parallels are paralleling. Trust me, the parallels parallel, and I was having a great time with that, but I was having a horrible time with the rest of it. 3 stars. I read normal books. Anyways, the other nonfiction. In Open Contempt, I don't remember exactly what this one is about. I just remember, I think this one was supposed to be about racism. There were 2 books about Black history and racism when it comes to art, and this was one of them. I haven't read the other one. I did borrow it from Hoopla, but the loan relapsed. Okay, I haven't gotten around to it. But this is one of them, and he's like a professor of arts and I think literature. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But it was one of those things where a lot of it was more about his personal experiences, which yes, I get, and not enough about the art that I wanted. Like the reason why I picked it up, which like my solution is it's already pretty short, just make it longer. Have both. So I'm hoping the other one of a similar vein is more what I wanted from this one. That being said, still 4 stars. Like, let's be honest. I'll look at another nonfiction. Lady Killers is a book that is a collection of I don't know. It's about female serial killers throughout time. Like not like modern ones, like a long time ago. I think the most recent one was like in the 60s, possibly. Anyways, it's about each woman's life. It's not so much about why we think they did it, right? But more of a like, hey, there's so much literature and media about male serial killers. But there's like none about female serial killers, and the explanation given whenever, usually a man, does a study about female serial killers, and it's like, well, the reason why there's not as much information or literature is because there's not enough of them, and this is like historical evidence of there being them in the past. Anyways, despite the topic, the writer has a certain brand of comedy that she puts in her writing that made it very digestible, because dark topics, like there's a lot of abuse, violence of every kind, right? Also like being able to use, she uses all these stories to make common threads about some of these women. Like some of them were like rich women. That's how they got rid of it, got away with it for so long. Some of them use the killing of their husbands on a regular basis to get further along in life, to have money to survive. And so that was fun. That was the phrase. That was fun. Oh, I'm back. I turned on light. So maybe. Yeah, there was a break to turn on light and feed the dog and grab the physical book. But first, we gotta talk about another nonfiction. I think. I was gonna say I think it's the last nonfiction. It's not. It's not. There was one later on. I wasn't gonna count it as nonfiction. We'll talk about it. Anyways, I read Night. Funny story about this book. I read it while at my mother's celebration of life. During the calm moments, during that, I was reading Night, a book by about. The fever's working overtime. Wiseman. Is it Neil? I want to say Neil, but I feel like that's wrong. Is it Eli? Easel? I think that's close, actually. His experience as a young teen, I think he was 15, when him and his family were taken to Auschwitz. Yeah, it's really sad. It's really good. Okay, the reason why I read this, because you may be like, hey, that seems like the worst time to read this book. Valid. Understandable. That's why I hate so much. Okay, thank you very much. Anyways, I remember in my school, I'm like going through this process of rereading classics I read during my school days, or reading the ones that we never finished, right? The Book Thief was the most recent one I did for that type of situation, right? And I loved, also 5 stars, and about similar topics. Themes, that was oddly enough not part of the Holocaust section of my school. I remember in my school, I think it was 8th grade, we had the history class and the language arts class, or the English class, were taught the same things, and during a whole month, we learned about the Holocaust. That's all we learned about for like a month in these 2 classes. And the 2 books we read was Mouse and then a few chapters of Night. Like we only read a few sections of Night. And so I like had it labeled as read on Goodreads, and I couldn't remember if I'd read all of it. I think we only read sections. So the reason why it's not my favorite of the month is purely because I don't remember if I read it all the way. And so I don't know if it was a neat enough and then reread. Either way, it's a reread, right? So that's why it's not my favorite of the month. That being said, it's really good. It's really well written. 5 stars. I also don't know if when I originally read it in 8th grade, in the olden days, if it was the version that was translated by his wife, because that's important. The fact that the current version was translated by his wife is important, and really just explains why who translates your books is really important. Thank you very much. Anyways, it's really good. It's really sad. I recommend, but like, beware. Thank you, Bella, for staring out the window right now. You can't see her, but she's staring out the window. Anyway, we gotta talk about the physical one. Speaking of reading books from my school days, Giovanni's Room is a book I read in college in, I think it was my sophomore year. No, wait. It was my junior year, I believe. I think it was right before COVID. That was for my queer lit class. And I remember not liking it. But also, because of the dynamics that is college, sometimes you don't have time to go into a piece of literature as much as you want. Sometimes the class does not go into the piece of literature as you would prefer, or as the way that you want to, and stuff like that. So that's why I tried to reread them, especially ones that I think I'd like more as an adult with a fully formed brain. Perfect example is this. I think I had it sitting at 3 on Goodreads. I'm gonna be honest. I upped it to 4.5. Yeah, that's about right. Anyways, also, if you don't know, last month, in February, I read the 24-hour, oh my god, I can't believe that audiobook was 24 hours, but the 24-hour nonfiction that came out last year about James Baldwin's life in general, right? And part of that book is that it goes into the connection between his books and his personal life. And so, because of me having the knowledge from that book going into this book, some of the highlights I did, like, yes, I did go in, and I did mark the things that I highlighted in college, and I went, why the fuck did I highlight these things, or underline them? I only underlined them with pencil, so I, like, I forget how I marked them this time around, but I did it all in, like, my erasable highlighter, and a color I don't even think matches this book, but it's the best working highlighter I had that's easily erasable. Like, that's why, right? I did it in that one, and I wanted to have it. Like, I didn't have it as I was reading it in case I didn't want to keep it, but now I want to keep it. So I made go through and have it, while listening to another audiobook at some point, right? Like, I've done that before. I did that with, Bloodmarked, hilariously. Anyways, yeah, no, I kept a mark of, like, what I highlighted in college and why I did, if there were any notes with it, but then I re-highlighted, like, what I thought was important nowadays, sometimes writing, like, notes to myself, being like, the connection to his real life, especially with, his relationship, the character in this book's relationship with his father, in comparison with James Baldwin's relationship with his father and religion for both of them, and how that plays a part. Like, that whole aspect was so interesting. Anyways, I recommend reading Baldwin by Nicholas Briggs. I swear to God, I remembered his name. That was over a month ago. I swear to God. It's because that book was so long and left an impact on me. Anyways, I recommend reading that and then this, if you're gonna go for it. If you're willing to read that book, because that book is hella long, but it does give interesting insight, right? The end, 4.5, it was good. Then I read, okay, so, like, I'm trying to stay up to date with the new Allie Hazelwoods while also catching up on all the Allie Hazelwoods, because I'm behind on Allie Hazelwoods. I'm close, I'm getting there. So I read Bound, which is apparently she has a deal with Spotify. She must have a deal with Spotify where every year she comes out with a Spotify only, and then after like 6 months it comes out on Hoopla as well. And that's what happened. I saw it on Hoopla and I went, what the hell is this? I did not read the synopsis. So I spent the first like 20 minutes I was listening to this audiobook being like, is he a vampire? I don't think it was in the synopsis though. But he's clearly a vampire. Essentially. She is a student who is the daughter of con artists. And I think she's a master's student for classic literature or something like that, right? And she works at a special editions, like classics, bookstore, right? And a lot of what she does, she is supposed to like confirm that books are what people say they are when they're buying them, right? Confirm what editions they are, and whatnot, and also refurbish them. But sometimes she may just like touch up a book to make it look like another book, or like it's older than it actually is, right? And then there's a professor at the school who kidnaps her to do that, but for a very specific book. And cough cough, he's a vampire, and listen, I don't know. It's a whole bunch of her being like, okay, I did find the banter. Listen, the banter she always gets, but also the comedy in general with the whole situation, I kind of really like. And also, at least I would almost always love a romance where the female main character is more promiscuous, more experienced, and the male main character is like, it's been a while, or he has like almost no experience, if any at all, which is him in this. That's the dynamic. And so I think he was like a priest or something to do with religion early on in his life, right? And so now he sees this beautiful woman. He's like, I must, but I will not. And then they do. And they do a lot. And I'm just like, yeah, that's what the type of dynamic I want about books. Listen, I don't like virgin man characters unless if he's a virgin. And then I eat it up. Thank you very much. Anyways, 4 stars. It's not the best Ellie Hazelwood I've read, but it's definitely not the worst Ellie Hazelwood I've read. Actually, I think the worst Ellie Hazelwood I've read is between the other Ellie Hazelwood I read last month. Or maybe that was last month, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, earlier this year, or the other Spotify original that I've read. So fun. Then I read Absolution, which is the 4th and final of the Southern Reach, but I call it Annihilation series. Funny story, love the first 2 in that series. I think they're great. They're weird, kooky sci-fi where a bunch of scientists have to go into the zone that is quarantined, and there's weird stuff going on. And it's kind of like radiation is causing a bunch of weird stuff happening to the animals and whatnot. But there's also creatures and also psychological aspects. And it's like, and then the second one is like the government oversight of this area and what's happening there. And with that, and that was really good. And then the third one was very mid. And so then there was a 4th one many years later. And I read the 4th one. And I don't remember why I really disliked it, but I do know I really disliked it and rated it 2 stars. I don't remember why. I cannot, for the life of me, remember why. I remember there being an alligator and being really important. I can't. There was like, okay, I remember there was this one part that suddenly, it's like split into 3 parts, kind of. Following 3 different characters. If you know about the guy in the lighthouse, one of them is the guy in the lighthouse. There's this guy that works for the government overreach people, and his daughter is missing, and the government, or the people he works for knows about it, and they know where she is, but won't tell him. But is the daughter even real? I don't know. And then, the other one is a guy who is going into the zone, I think one of the first missions into the zone, right? And he... I don't know how to explain this guy. This guy is, what I imagine guys who play Call of Duty sound like in their mom's basements. Like, he's saying the F word and saying very sexual things constantly, and because of the drugs that he's on, some of them, the government put him on, some of them, he put himself on, for fun. He doesn't know if he's saying them out loud or in his head. And so, it's just, the poor guy who had to narrate this, it's the same guy as all the other ones, and he did a well enough job, but imagine you're laying in bed, and you're trying to finish this book, and then all of a sudden, he's just screaming the F word repeatedly in your ear. And that was suddenly my reading experience for the last third, and I was like, this is not good. What is happening here? I don't like, the books have always been a little complicated, and I never fully understanding them, and I'm being fine with that, right? Like, they were a good time. I still enjoyed reading them. Not that, that was not it. Anyways, 2 stars. Good news is, that was part of my 26 and 2026. I think I read 2 others, and only one of those I could talk about during this. Mary Oliver is the other nonfiction. I forget the name of Mary. I just wrote Mary Oliver. I didn't write down the name of the book. You think I would write down the name of the book? Anyways, I give it 3 stars. The reason why I labeled it as nonfiction, in previous past me has labeled poetry as nonfiction and put it as my reading challenge. But the person I am now, currently, I'm about to finish the 15th out of 25 planned nonfiction books. Okay, for the year, I may have to up it. I don't know what's happening to me. So this wasn't originally going to be on it, but about half, maybe more than half, was either essays about her life, Mary Oliver's, or about other authors' life. Some of it did hit. There was one about Edgar Allan Poe. The issue I had with this one is that the issue I have with a lot of poetry collections, especially by popular authors like this, where a lot of them I am pretty sure I've read before. I'm pretty sure I read the one about the loon and eating, the Edgar Allan Poe essay, I'm 100% sure I read before. It just hit differently now this time. I don't know why. I know the Walt Whitman I've read before, because that's the whole reason I want to read Leaves of Grass. I know I've read that one before in a different Mary Oliver collection, and I got to the point where so many of them, I was like, I've read these before. And I went to make sure I hadn't read this poetry collection before, because I thought I was going crazy, and then I had, but no, I hadn't, and it was just, all of them were in different poetry collections I've read before. And so my thoughts and opinions are, it's fine. I just read most of them already. 3 stars. The end. It's Gemini. Which is the sequel to Illuminae. What is it about? It is space stuff. This is the book that made me, because I read this shortly before I got sick. And if you've watched my trying to read sci-fi video, I brought up Battlestar Galactica a lot, especially when I was reading Illuminae. It was giving a lot of that vibes. Okay, there were space battles. There were space battles, right? And the AI was going evil. It was given Battlestar Galactica. And also there was like government corruption and stuff. And it was given Battlestar Galactica, but for teenagers. Okay? Right? And so when I got sick and I was just in bed for multiple days, I watched so much Battlestar Galactica. I just still eat so much, and I need whoever did the stuff with Kara and Lee to fucking, what the fuck are you on? Who wrote that? Who wrote all that? Anyways, Gemini is about, so the first one is about an evil organization shot down and destroyed a mining operation, an illegal mining operation by a competitive company on this planet. And the whole point of it was to like destroy it all and then be like, oops, it was illegal, and also it was just an accident, nobody can prove that it was us type thing, right? Except the big space government, right, people on one of their ships were testing out new stuff, blah blah blah, nearby, so they heard the SOS signal and showed up. So now they've also shut down government ships and killed government people and chased down government people, and there's also this plague and all this stuff, and they're trying to get to this phase gate to get out of there in order to get to somewhere safe, right? And the whole book is like the files of the evidence of all this, and this is the second one where it's more files, and this one takes place during the same time, but on that phase gate in which they realize the reason why nobody's come from them during the first one is because they were attacked at the same time, right? And so this one follows the guy who's in charge of the base, his daughter, who I think is 17 canonically, but she should have been 19 or 20. I'm gonna be honest, the way that everybody sexualizes her, including like 40-year-old men, including her boyfriend who is 20, I am not joking, he's 20 in this book, and he's dating a 17-year-old daughter of his boss. Like, that part's a little icky, and we're not talking about that. I just imagine that she's 19 the whole book. Anyways, we're following her, and the other main character, who is her love interest, is the mob boss's nephew, who is also on the ship, and was accidentally working with the people who are mercenaries who show up on the ship, hired by the company, right, to kill everybody on board, right? That's her whole job. Their job is to show up and kill everybody. Except she's a badass, and she fucks everybody up, and he's just hiding in a corner for most of it. And he has a cousin who helps him out, and it's a lot of them trying to work together to stop a bunch of guys on the ship. And there's also worms. We don't need to talk about the worms, but there's a bunch of guys on the ship trying to stop them and kill them. And they don't expect the 17-year-old daughter, even though in my head she's 19, of the commander, to have a father who's really big into teaching his daughter, very anti her being in a relationship, valid in this situation because he is 20, and also spoilers, but also so understandable. But very into that, very much pro teaching her, like making her read The Art of War, right? Making her learn logistical things about war and how to win battles and also how to fight and shoot a gun. Like, so she has all this training, and they're not expecting that, so they're expecting her to just turn herself in. She's the pretty princess, and then she shoots them all, and I love that. And then weird time shit happens. Here's the thing. I remember in the first one, I was not liking it for like the first 25-ish%, because I found the two main characters in that one's dynamic really annoying, right? In the first 25%, I kind of hated it. And so I was having the same issue with this one. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to pick up the audiobook, and I'm just going to dual read it. And that was a great decision, because there was a part where there was weird time shit happening, which I love. I love weird time shit. And because of that, there were things happening at the same time, and you had to read in a specific order, but the way it was in the ebook, it was impossible for me to follow along. So I'm very happy I did the audiobook for especially that section, because I just listened along. I was like, I don't even know where you are, what page you're on, what the hell is happening. I'm just going to give up trying to follow you along. Anyways, part of the reason why I was having a hard time in the beginning of this one is because, despite the fact that I do love the badass princess and the hardened criminal falling in love dynamic, where he's like spent their whole entire friendship. Did I mention he's also her drug dealer? That's their connection. He flirts with her all the time, right? Whenever he sells to her, usually gives her a cheaper price or a better deal, or if he can't get something, he'll find some for her, right? That's the type of guy we're talking about. Anyways, I do love that. The idea of that whole dynamic, I love. But in practice, it was very, very similar. It was just copy and pasting from the first book, but tweaking it a little bit to make it a little bit more interesting. And really did make it a little bit more interesting. I already talked about how I didn't like their dynamic in the first one, so I was having issues because of that. And so because of that, 4 stars. That being said, I will be the third one some point soon-ish. Anyways, okay, now we gotta talk about my actual favorite of the month. I should drink water first. I know this about myself. Okay, hear me out. You know when you're not feeling clicked, and you know this about yourself, and you just want to read a book with yearning, and you know what, but also a book that's dumb, and And you know what's great for that? I'm slightly playing Bridgerton season 4, okay? I watched it and then this happened, right? And so what's great for that is contemporary queer romance. If I want it to not be dumb, I would do historical. If I want to be dumb, I want it contemporary. Also, I blame Heated Rivalry because the Ursula rewatch was very strong around this time. So there was, at some point last year, there was a dumb gay contemporary romance I read that I was like, this is meh, but it was a great time reading it, right? And so I just went on Libby and I pulled that book up on Libby and I went similar. And I found this random book called Until We Meet Again. Never heard of this author before. It's a sequel to another book that I'm not going to read. Despite the fact that I love this one. This one's 5 stars. It is my favorite of the month. I was crying on camera multiple times on stream because it was so good. And I don't know how to explain this to you. This book, I picked out of the blue. I would have never read this book otherwise. It was just a random choice. And so I picked it up and I read it. And then one of them, okay, so they're like roommates. They were roommates, okay? And one of them is a performer. He does a lot of dance, but theater and all that type of stuff, right? That's what he's doing. They're college kids. That's what he's doing. His roommate does football, right? And he's gay. The dancer's gay. He assumes Mr. Football Player is straight. Part of their dynamic is what I assume in the first book thing happened when one of his dancing friends and one of his teammates got together, and there was a lot of homophobia in the football group, right? And so because of that, he came to his roommate as somebody he trusts who's not a part of this relationship to be like, hey, explain this to me so that I, a normie, can understand, right? And I can support my best friend, right? Valid, I get it. And so he does that in the first book, and so because of that, he has started the process of growth. Also, he's not in his like small hometown anymore. He's growing. He's meeting new people. Part of the college experience is getting outside your comfort zone and meeting people that you wouldn't have met otherwise and learning about the world. Right? I get this. And so that's what's happening to him. He's not. He's very much not becoming this super masculine boys are gross, all this stuff, right? He's very comfortable in sexuality. He usually just bangs girls and moves on. Also, a very important thing about him, he has a dead brother. Everything in his life is based around his dead brother. His brother was older than him, went into the military, died. Now goes to the same college that his brother went to, and he's part of the same football team that his brother was in. And a lot of his life, his parents constantly talking about his dead brother. Constantly telling him that because he hasn't figured out what his major is yet. I'm pretty sure they're sophomores. That's totally fine. You know how many people in my junior year switched majors? It's fine. It's okay, fam. But he doesn't know what he wants to do yet, right? And so he's trying to make choices, and he makes a great choice for him, and it's great. And but his parents are like, I'm not so sure about that. That's not what your brother would choose, or your brother would already have it figured out, or your brother never had issues with math homework. Why do you have issues with math homework? I'm pretty sure his roommate helps him out with his homework, and that's like a whole thing, right? So that's his whole life. And a lot of this book is him writing letters to his brother. He used to write emails to his brother on the reg, right? And then he died. So what he does now is he writes them, and then they just bounce into the ether, and it says email unable to be sent because that email address doesn't exist anymore, right? And so, but it feels like he's still sending the message to his brother in a way, right? Is an important part of himself, right? Anyways, because of his personal growth journey, and it's the new semester with his roommate, and they're friendly, right? But he's starting to notice that his roommate's a little cute, and is uncomfortable with the idea of his roommate going out with a strange man he's never met before from, I think it was from Grindr. I'm gonna be honest, understandable. Understandable. And he was like, I just want to make sure you get home safe. I want to make sure you're safe and you're comfortable and all this stuff. There's like this whole bit about whoever can get laid first on that night wins or something like that, right? And instead of trying to win, he's trying to make sure he's safe in doing that. Iconic. Anyways, he's starting to question his sexuality because he's finding his roommate a little too cute. And so he's like, can I just kiss you to see if that's a thing for me? And he's like, sure, I guess. That becomes very heated very fast. He comes to terms, realizes that not only is he bisexual, he's demisexual, right? There is this whole dynamic with his parents in general, and there's parents-teacher day or whatever, family day, and his parents can't show up because they have important stuff to do with his brother. I swear to God, he's been dead. Support your other child. Anyways, Rumi's parents are coming, and he's all like, well, you can come hang out with us. The parents show up, like, the dancer boy's parents show up, and are like, okay, whose class are we going to first? Because they're going to go to his class as well, because they're going to support him. And I cried. Okay, a lot of the stuff I cried about was the family dynamics, but also their cuteness, and their support of each other, and it was very sweet, and I really loved it, and I need everybody to read it, and I cried, I laughed, I had a great time, 5 stars. Welcome to the land of Rose. Okay, the 4.5 star we get to talk about next is All Systems Red. I finally read it, and I get it. It's so funny. If you don't know, it is the diary. It's called Murderbot Diaries, is what the series is called. So it's the diary of a murderbot. They call themselves Murderbot. I'm sorry, I should say they. I picture them as Skarsgård because I know Skarsgård plays them in the adaptation, but they are genderless. They are basically a robot designed to kill as security. They're like a security robot. And they make them look a little humanoid to make it so people trust them more. Anyways, their whole job on this planet is to protect the scientists, and then a bunch of weird shit happens, and people are dying. including another science exposition area kind of nearby. And so at the same time, all these humans are realizing they're kind of more humanoid than we expected. Also, a important thing about them, they hijack their own programming. Okay, so there was like an incident before where sometimes they bug out and murder the wrong people, and that happened before. And because it costs a lot of money to make this robot, they just wiped it all and restarted from the beginning. The company did, but the robot, Mr. MX Murderbot, I should just call them Murderbot because that's what they call themselves, Murderbot. Decides, hey, I don't want that to happen again. I don't want the order to come in to kill this person, and I do, and it's the wrong order because the system breaks. And so they hack into their own programming to make it so they can't do that. And then because of that, they just download a lot of reality TV and watch a lot of dumb TV, and that's so realistic. That's so realistic. Anyways, so they're trying to protect these humans who are kind of kind to them, but also know their secret that they hijack their own programming, so it can turn them into the company. As a bunch of conspiracy stuff happening, and they're just trying to survive. And it was good. 4.5 stars. I loved it. I do need to continue the series. The end. Okay, the last one we're going to talk about is Dread the Night. This is the one I read while I was sick. Okay, it is the third book in a thriller horror series. It's, I think, medium, right? But Midwest. Take place in the Midwest, right? And her husband's a piece of shit. And I was right all along. Okay, I've been reading this one since, I think, end of February is when I started it. But I didn't finish it until I was sick. Like, I was in bed sick and I was reading like 30 pages a day. And that's what I was reading until I finished it, because that's how long I've been sick. Anyways, it is about Celeste, who, throughout the series, she had a near-death experience where somebody killed her and hit and run, technically. And she died, came back, and since then, she has been able to have weird dreams, and see the dead, and whatnot. And in book 2, she helps this woman find her mother, figure out what happened to her mother and her as a child. And Celeste takes on this case in particular because of her own missing mother. Her mother disappeared when she was like 4. At max. Her dad just told them that, like, she ran off and nobody's heard from her since, right? So she decides to return to that town where she was born and look into it, but also she, at the same time, she's on the run from her husband, who definitely has something to do with the hit and run. I am so happy I was so right about that. Thank you. Anyways, it's a lot of, like, the spooky stuff is generally, like, it's a mystery of what happened. And it's kind of obvious, right? The reason why this is a 3.5 and not a 4, like the other 2 books in the series, I will explain in a second, because the mystery aspect. But also the horror comes from the ghost. A lot of times, there's, like, the perfect example in this one is her great aunt, I believe. It's her mother's sister, right? Who she has this whole important conversation with, right? And whatnot. Similar thing happens in book 1, where she has this whole important conversation. She learns a lot. They talk. Her aunt gives her a drink. Blah blah blah. She goes to talk to her dad about what she learned from her aunt, and her dad's like, "What are you talking about? She's been dead for years." And that's where the spooky shit comes in. And then there's also just like weird ghosts. There's also a missing child from around the same time. I want to say like 4 or 5 years after her mom's disappearance. And so it's like, are those 2 cases connected? Now, the mystery part, it's very clear. You get, throughout the book, a few chapters from her mother's POV during that year before she disappeared, right? And it's very clear, very obvious that Celeste's father drugged his wife regularly so that he could sleep with a babysitter who was his 17-year-old student. And it's blatantly said in the book that that's wrong, and how if that was nowadays he would have been arrested, right, and whatnot, but how everybody was like, yeah, that's fine in town, despite the fact that he was her teacher and coach, and she was 17, and she moved into the house after his wife disappeared, like 2 days later. Anyways, the issue I had is her part to play in that whole aspect is explained as the reason why she did certain things is because she just gets whatever she wants, and she really wanted him. And so, even if he didn't choose her, it's okay, because she would have done something anyways to, like, blame it on him, or, make something happen, to make him look crazy, because she always gets what she wants, and so, it's totally fine, and it's not like she was being groomed or anything, and that would have been a perfectly fine excuse or reasoning for everything that happened, in the mystery aspect, right? That would explain everything, and that would explain why she hates him, and Celeste in connection, right? Like, that would explain it all, but no, they just make it like, well, she was like that before, and also she just gets whatever she wants, so, and, your mother was in the way of her getting the man she wanted. The end. I hated that. I hated that so much that I had to bring it down. 3.5. That being said, I still really like the series. The end. That's it. I did all 14. I don't know how long this is. I had to film in multiple clips. I gotta go cook my dinner. Goodbye. What the hell? This has definitely been at least an hour, I'm gonna guess. So goodbye. End of video stuff. Oh my goodness. Hey, you wanna know about the nonfiction I didn't talk about in this video that I read in the month of March? Well, next week's book 2 video is, or Saturday video, in other words, is a video in which I read a bunch of trans books. And that's what those nonfiction were, right? So there's that on Saturday. Wednesdays are gaming videos, slightly edited down versions for my streams. I think next week's will be Crime Scene Cleaner. I haven't filmed it yet, but I know that's what it's gonna be, okay? I just gotta film it. Right, Bella? I know. And speaking of that, oh my god, I stream on Twitch very regularly, almost every day, except for when I'm sick and dying. I haven't streamed in over a week and I feel weird about it. We don't need to talk about it. That's that. Everything linked below. The end. Goodbye. Until the next video.